Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Two Trees podcast. I'm John Dillon, and I'm here with the woman whose school supply list includes coffee, but little patience, Rosemary Moeller.
Hi.
And the man who doesn't need a caddy, just a search party, Martin Listener.
What is up with
You
this?
took some time this week, didn't you?
I want to have puns also.
No. Well, you're bad at it. So,
Dang it.
you know.
Stealing my
tried.
shtick here.
Oh, that's okay. No, my friends, Rosemary and Martin, I love them both. They are here with me. We have survived coldness here. It is springtime, but the weather doesn't know it. And so I went to a baseball game today where my son played baseball. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Maybe you guys don't struggle with this, but as a dad going to a baseball game, I don't want to appear to be too weak in front of the other dads. So you can't wear the clothing that you want to wear because you'll look like you aren't tough. You got to like show up with.
I cannot wait to hear the end of this.
Yeah. So
what did you wear?
Well, I wore like a fleece, but I should have wore like the clothes to go skiing.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you're sitting there like trying to look tough, but really you're just like thinking, dear Lord, deliver us. Please let them
Do you want to
strike
borrow
out.
some of Jeremy's Carhartts that he like cuts
I'm going to have to do
firewood in?
something because
That would
I
be
need
tough.
to look both manly and not be miserable the whole time. So
It's
I have
funny
to
you
figure
say
this
that,
out.
though, because we went to the girls' softball game and they won pretty big, which is awesome. But there was guys that were like in T-shirts, and you could tell they were toughing it out. Like they were like,
Yeah, like those guys are there. I
Weather's fine.
can't show up in 5 layers looking like the Pillsbury Doughboy.
But you walk by and you can see the goosebumps on their arms. Like, you're cold.
I was
Just
cold.
admit it. Just admit
I
you're
was
cold.
cold.
Everybody
if I
knows
had
you're
it to
cold.
do over, I'd wear a toboggan, a scarf, winter coat,
I ain't
3
worried.
pairs of pants.
I'd rather be warm.
Looking even more like Ignatius J. Riley than normal. But, you know.
I'm done trying to be cool. I'm all about comfort now.
I
This
wasn't
is
being
happening.
cool at all. I built a fire in our wood stove and am trying to finish a murder mystery on audio. So I was warm
Must
and comfortable.
be nice.
It was. Yeah.
You also let us know who done it. Probably the butler.
I have 20 minutes left on it.
Did you open that door? That's creepy.
I'm sitting right here. How would I open it?
I don't know. Maybe you have a magical
Remote
power?
control
I don't know.
door.
Anyway, welcome to the Two Trees podcast. We are here. Martin, tell us about our sponsor today.
Okay. Our sponsor is actually a pretty good one. We're talking about the weather anyway, and it's been like really stormy and windy here this spring. So our sponsor for today's episode is James and John's Meteorology. A forecast is cloudy with a chance of thunder.
Oh, Sons of Thunder.
I get it.
I tried to also be clever. I just can't do it. Rose, have you got a sponsor for us? Not a sponsor, a review.
I do. This one is from Elihu, and it says, this podcast is super easy to listen to, which I appreciate. The hosts have a range of knowledge regarding their familiarity with Scripture. Thus, regardless if you are a newer student of the Bible or even have degrees in it like I do, you'll likely find some valuable insights along the way. To clarify, Rose does not have degrees in it. This person who left the review has degrees in the Bible.
Nice. Well, that's very kind of
I
them.
thought it was too.
Anytime that you leave us a review, it opens our podcast to new listeners. And so if you have found our podcast to be helpful and you think that other people might also benefit from listening to us chatter, leave us a review. Even if you don't type anything, you just leave the stars. More stars is better.
But if you leave just a star, I can't say anything.
That's
I can't
true.
read it. I'll just
We will say
Yeah.
nothing.
there's
but
a star or two or
something
three.
to be better than nothing. But thank you for all of the stars that have been left for us. And we have kind of had a weird week. Rose, you had a board meeting just a couple of days ago. People are listening to this
did.
like weeks apart,
Oh, sure.
but this was just recently.
Yeah, I did. I have a board meeting. I am president of the library board.
Are you really?
And I am.
And you're
So
president.
raise your hand if you're a president here.
Oh, I am a
That's
president.
interesting, John. There's
I
2
am
hands up
Yeah.
right
not
now.
the president of anything.
And I hear you don't know how to dress for a ball game.
Oh, I know
so-
how to dress. I just didn't because I was trying to be manly.
Well, so here's the thing.
Those who know what to do and choose
Do it
to
not.
Yes.
Yes, to there. I am a sinner.
We're just foolish. So the thing about being a president of a board is that you have to kind of run the meetings. And
Wait, did you schedule the meeting?
no, it's already scheduled. It's not as grand as it sounds. Okay.
So as president, you purposefully permitted a meeting on our recording day?
I did. And
Wow.
I stand by it.
Wow.
But the point
Wow.
is that I have to actually navigate these, and I'm not that great at it. I'm learning, but everybody there is older than me, so it's a little humbling to do these things, like take roll call and ask if there's discussion. And honestly, some of the stuff, I don't even know what we're talking about.
Sometimes when we're doing
if
things
anybody
like...
is listening to this, it's on the board. I apologize.
No, sometimes Rose will get aggressive about things. Like if people are explaining things to her, she'll yell, yes, no. And you have to make a call.
I want an answer.
Like right then.
Is it yes or no? That's what I want. I do not do that at the meeting, because that
Why?
would be because
That's when you should do it the most.
I'll work it in next time. I will.
You will not be the president long.
No.
They will have
Mission
a
accomplished.
revolution.
Impeachment coming.
Well, anyway, we are back, and we're talking about Cain again. So we're kind of discussing, though, the idea of what does it mean to be human outside of the Garden of Eden, because man was made, purpose-built by God to image him, to serve the Lord in the garden. And in the Garden of Eden, being a human makes sense. It's easy to see how this would work. You have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and the critters on the land. You're acting as a priest in the temple. You're walking with the Lord in the cool of the day. But once all of that breaks down, what do? Like, I don't really feel like I have much dominion over the fish of the sea. Even when I go fishing, I spend a lot of time talking to God about if he would please deceive that particular trout into eating my...
Hey, but at Quinton's the other day, we pulled out a couple of big ones.
Yeah,
So,
Martin,
yeah,
we did
were
go
all right.
fishing, and Martin did real good. Your dad put us both to shame, though.
Yeah, he did. He's got that spinner thingy, whatever it's called. I'm a novice when it comes to fishing, so don't...
Hey,
act
guess
like
what
I'm
that's
an-
actually called? A spinner.
Yeah.
Spinnerbait.
Yeah, the spinner thing. Man, he kept pulling him in. He's like, you try it. Real nothing. Real nothing. I was like, mine's broken, Dad. I don't know.
You need to have more faith.
I guess that's probably what it was.
But I mean, really, when you think about like what it would have been like for Adam and Eve, real people, really living in a world that has just radically shattered, what did they think they were doing when they left Eden? Was just like we read it, we're like, well, obviously they were waiting for the Messiah to come, because you can see how big the Bible is, and you know this is coming. Adam and Eve have no idea that this is going to be thousands of years in the future. They have no idea about a flood that's coming. To them, they're living their life, and apparently they're still trying to maintain their role as priests of the Lord and as servants of the Most High God. So they're still imaging God. This calling to be the image of God doesn't go away just because they're outside of the garden. But what does it look like? And so the Bible gives us this picture of Cain and his brother Abel. Both of these men bring a sacrifice to the Lord, and they are acting as priests. So there's a couple odd things going on here. One of them is that Adam and Eve do not seem to be offering sacrifices at the same time. Why are both of these boys or men bringing their sacrifices together? Was this like a ceremony? Had they created a holiday? Were they like, why? Was this a daily event, yearly event, decade-long event? We don't really know. That it gets my imagination twitchy. I would like to know a lot of these things. But what you see is that God confronts Cain about the hardness of his heart. It isn't about the actual sacrifice that's given. A sacrifice is a way of honoring God. It's a gift. It's a way of showing I'm bringing to you the first fruits or something wonderful from my garden. And it isn't necessarily that God is upset with the thing that Cain provides. What God does is he criticizes the man who is providing the offering. You are doing this out of bad motivations.
And I think we were kind of discussing after that, because I brought up the Isaiah 1 passage a little bit, and it really reminded me of that when we were talking about Cain and Abel and their sacrifices. And Isaiah 1 in verse 11 says, "What is it to me, the multitude of your sacrifices, says the Lord? I've had enough with burnt offerings of rams, the fat of well-fed beasts. I do not delight in the blood of bulls or lambs or of goats." And I think that really is a reference back to Cain and Abel almost, because you're talking about he's doing the right thing. What we're going to learn later when the law comes out, that like he's actually sacrificing what he should be doing. But the idea behind it is not in a way of worshiping to God.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter if he has the fattest ram or the best fruits or the first fruits or 10% or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter the method. Jesus or God in this point looks back at the heart of the person and doesn't care about the sacrifice. The woman that gives the 1 penny when everybody else is giving their wealth is another idea of this. I think it's very much reference with Cain and Abel and how they're giving back to God.
Yeah, you're going to find that concept echoed all through the prophets. Malachi in particular is going to hit on this. You're doing all the right things, but your heart stinks. Your sacrifices are an abomination to me. I wish you would stop. And that's kind of what you see with Cain and Abel, is that here is the beginning of this, that the Lord is not impressed with your ritual. It isn't the Hellenistic idea of the recipe for the perfect sacrifice, and this will make God happy. It has to do with the person who is offering the thing. And so we have diversity between Cain and Abel, but we also find unity of purpose, that God is holding them both to one standard, that either you are coming to worship me or you are not. Either you are loving me or you are not. There isn't a way to pull the wool over my eyes, Cain. And if you're going to be my priest, you need to serve me and not the other way around.
Do you think that that's like part of the curse or the fall? Because, when it takes them out of the garden, and it's talking, a lot of it's talking about purpose. Mankind was made for a purpose, and the purpose is to worship God and to care for his, created stuff. And so when we try to do that after the fall, our motive is always skewed, or we always start off really good and then something happens with that. Is that the purpose that we lose because of the fall? Is that like, you know what I'm trying to say?
So,
here?
yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I kind of want to take it back to a point that you started with, and that is that, like, when it's before the fall, like, you can see this unfolding in Eden. But since then, there's something twisted in our nature. Like, we may hit it right on pitch the first time, but we're going to slide off into some pretty screechy noises pretty quickly. As a Christian, I recognize this about myself, and God does as well. It is now a question not about perfection. That rests in Jesus and in Jesus only, but in the direction that I'm wanting to go. Do I view God as something to be used or as someone to be served? And so for me, when I look at like the way of Eden, or the green way, as I sometimes call it, is this idea of purposefully taking something and letting it be innocent and true and beautiful and good. And so even if it's a small thing, the intention defines the act. If I'm meaning this to be, and obviously you can't like be a liar for the glory of God or abusive for the glory of God. Like if it is a thing that is in the way that God made it, and I'm engaged at that, this then can become something beautiful, or it can become something wicked.
One of your real smart guys that you always quote, I'm not sure who it was, but says that the act can't rise higher than the motive.
Yeah, Tozer.
It is kind of what you're saying, I believe, with that. And there's just this idea that, like, for some reason, when we were in the garden, everybody thinks life was easy. And when we say that, we're like, oh, they were just lounging on the beach, and then they ate some papayas that were fresh and the best you've ever had in your life. But it's like life was easy because the servant mentality of mankind before the fall came naturally to them. And so just trying to wrap your head around the idea that it wasn't just retirement home. It wasn't just, fluffy clouds and blue skies all day. It might have been, but it was the idea that the relationship between God and human was as it was intended to be.
And that's really what I think the author of Genesis is hinting at here, because immediately Cain is brought up on charges of you knew how to behave and you don't. God confronts Cain and he says, if your heart were to change and you were to actually offer up something, it will be accepted. Sin is crouching at the door and it desires to have dominion over you. You must rule over it. And so one of the sneaky things that happens to Bible readers is we have a tendency to set this calling that God has put on humanity to image God, to serve the Lord, and to have dominion over the world as like, well, that was for then, but then we messed it up, and now the story is about God fixing us and giving us stuff. Mankind never lost this. We are intended to be servants of the Most High God. Even though we are walking in open rebellion, the intention that God has for humanity never changes. The reality of our situation is changed. We are damned in our actions and in our destination because of what we are doing and because of the nature of what we're seeking. But we are all accountable before the God that made us, because there is a standard to which we're going to be made. And so what you see in Cain and Abel is you're not going to find a verse in the Bible that commanded Cain to do anything, but God is holding him accountable for what he does.
I think, one of the easiest ways to link this kind of stuff together is the relationship between a child and a parent. A suggestion from the other day, or an example from the other day, Oliver and I were playing a card game, and I was beating him. And I was beating him on purpose, but he was expecting to beat me, and he didn't. And he got so frustrated that he threw a fit and started crying and was storming off. And so as a father, looking at the end result of what happened, I'm not very happy. Like, you shouldn't react that way. You shouldn't be that competitive that you throw a fit over a silly card game. And then I'm thinking that's how I was growing up, so I get it. But on the other hand, he came back. He took the time to settle down, and he came back. And so if I'm just solely looking at the end result of what happened, I'm frustrated because I don't want you to react that way. But seeing the idea that Oliver is trying to push forward into a better lifestyle and a better relationship with me, it's like that's what God wants of us. We're going to stumble, we're going to throw fits, we're going to cry and scream because we didn't get our way. But having the idea of purposely pursuing Christ is what is going to ultimately change our lives and our perspective on God.
You can see that. I think you're exactly right. I'm not trying to push in a different direction here. But there isn't a moment where, like, Adam is given, like, a 10 commandments. Okay, now that you're out of the garden, here's all the new rules. They just kind of go out of the garden. And God says, hey, be with me, act this way. There's not a re-giving of these things. And so with Cain, you see exactly with what you're talking about here, Martin. God confronts him. It seems to be that God is still walking with man in the cool of the day. Cain is having a conversation with the Lord. And it doesn't seem to be the first time that he's ever had a conversation with the Lord. There isn't even that typical fear not moment that, like, angels get. Cain seems to consider this normal. And so this concept of, do I exist to serve others, or can I use others to benefit myself, is the thing that comes into focus in the story of Cain. He fails in his relationship to God as a priest. He fails in his relationship to his brother as his brother's keeper. He fails in relationship to his father and his mother. He's not bringing the family honor or even joining in with what God is doing through the family. He is a person who is seeking to define right and wrong for himself. And instead of becoming a person who dominates evil, he becomes an extension of evil.
I have a question, and this is so basic. What exactly did Cain do to start this whole train? It says, and the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. That's not a lot of information.
It is not, but if you read a little bit further.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So Cain was very angry and his face fell. And the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry and why is your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, and you must rule over it. So we can see as the story moves forward that Cain's heart is not in the right place, but that doesn't explain why the Lord had no regard for his offering.
It does, actually, because it seems to be that God is regarding the offering as an extension of the priest who is offering it. It isn't a matter, like, we want to read this in terms of ritual. It's got to be a blood sacrifice. Well, not really, because there are moments in the Old Testament where they're not offering blood sacrifices. Not every sacrifice is a blood sacrifice. It doesn't even tell us that they're offering sacrifices for sins. This seems to be an act of worship that's taking place. And throughout the text, what you're going to find is that God is reprimanding Cain, not about a ritual that has been failed, but about a nature that is twisting out of image of God and beginning to image something else.
But that's where I think Rose's question is. The Bible doesn't say why or what actions he is doing to portray the twisted image.
No, but it becomes apparent throughout the rest of his story.
You just know that there is something there. There's no specifics as to what it is.
Well, the Bible actually mentions this a little bit in the book of Hebrews. Let's go to Hebrews 11 and verse 4. This is the Hall of Faith chapter. This is what it says about Cain and Abel.
By faith, Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous. God commended him by accepting his gifts, and through his faith, though he died, he still speaks.
Yeah, you notice what it says there. It says that Abel offered to God something, and it's not just a sacrifice. It says God commended him by accepting his gifts. This is the idea of a vassal approaching their king. He has brought an offering before the Lord, and it doesn't emphasize here the ritual. Like Hebrews is big on this, that there is a more perfect priesthood than the Levitical priesthood that was in operation. What seems to be being conflicted between the two is that Cain is not a servant of the Lord. There is no gift that is being given to the Lord, really. There is a form that's being gone through, but God sees through to the motive of the act, and he rejects Cain. The thing that sets Abel's sacrifice apart from Cain's sacrifice in this text is the faith. It's the obedience. It's the longing for the Lord.
It reminds me, I know you guys were speaking of some other verses in the Old Testament, but also in Micah, where he says, what does he require of you but to do justly, love mercy, walk humbly? The verses before that say, what do I do with these things? All these sacrifices you've brought to me. You know, these are not, I kind of was thinking about how with my kids, this is a bit of a stretch, but sometimes when they do something annoying, like leave a light on, and they leave it on, and they leave it on, and no matter how many times I say, stop leaving the lights on in your room, you know, or whatever, because electric
Sit in the darkness.
No, it's when they're not in the room, Jonathan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so I will see lights on for like the 5th time that week. I'm like, that's it. You owe me $5. Every time I see your light on, you have to pay me $5. Well, I'm sorry. Electric is really expensive right now. Don't look at me like that. Because that's how they look at me. And they're like, you just want my money. And I'm like, actually, I don't want your money. I don't need your money. What I want you to do is to stop doing this thing and obey me instead, you know, for the good of the family, to be a better steward. You know, all of the motivation behind why I want the light shut off is more important than your stupid $5 that you're going to go get and hand to me, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I know, like I said, it's a bit of, well, yeah.
No, but maybe. I think you're onto it. So I have found that people will hyper focus on the ritual of things because we love rules. We like a good recipe. What God is doing and what the author of Genesis here constructs for us in Cain is a train wreck of a story. It continues to twist. It's a little twisted. It's really twisted. It's unbelievably twisted. And it becomes more and more clear that Cain is a person who, left to his own devices, is never going to pursue God, is not interested in a relationship with God. And so it kind of begins in mystery. And then by the end of it, by the time he's developing his city and things like that, like it is nasty. And it comes more and more into focus. But what you're seeing here is, what does it mean to be human, a servant of God, if I refuse to be a servant of God? This is the world that we live in its infancy.
So, John, I have an interesting question. Do you think that Cain was surprised that his sacrifice was rejected?
Yeah, I think so.
And that's the part that scares me the most, is how often we try to go through life doing everything we can to be in good graces of God, or trying to pursue him. And then all of a sudden you get slapped in the face and it's like, man, you've been doing it wrong this whole time.
Well, think of what Jesus says in the Gospels. He says, why call you me Lord, Lord, and do not the things that I say? Or worse still, you know, didn't we do this in your name and do this in your name? And he's going to say, depart from me, worker of iniquity. I never knew you. This is the beginning of that drumbeat. And you're going to find it repeated in generation after generation and story after story until you find your own story, where you have a guy or girl who is living life. And it isn't that they're at war with God, but they expect God to serve them. They are going to define right and wrong, good and evil, and their ability to cover up their own shortfalls is unbelievably deep. They can excuse just about anything if given the opportunity to. Man hides. You find Cain and Abel. Before that, you find Adam and Eve, right? God walks with them in the garden. And God calls out to Adam and to Eve, where are you? Because they're what? They're hiding. And so what you find here is in chapter 3, God is walking through the garden looking for Adam and Eve. What you find in chapter 4 is Cain is walking through the field looking for Abel. You're going to notice immediately God came into the garden to protect, forgive, and bring about the next chapter. You don't get the idea that God was bloodthirsty for Adam and Eve's blood. Cain is. He is not a picture of what God is like. And I think this is one of the reasons that it doesn't give you the specifics. Mm-hmm. The specifics would get us off on the wrong thing. Instead, when you see Cain, you know this is not like the Most High. This is a twisted image. Let's actually pick the story up. Let's go to Genesis chapter 4, verses 8 through 9. And we have Cain walking and looking for Abel.
Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" He said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?"
There's the famous line. So you have here, Cain, he knows what he's supposed to do. God's just told him, if you know to do right, do it, and it's going to be okay. Sin is crouching at the door. It desires to have dominion over you, but you have to rule over it. He had a one-on-one conversation with God where he is called out on it, and now he has to choose. Cain then says, okay, I'll go talk to Abel. And in the back of your mind, if this is the first time you're reading it, maybe you're thinking, oh, good. You're going to go have a nice talk with Abel, and things are going to be fine. Instead, you took him into the field, which is where Cain would it doesn't say a field, it says the field in English. I can't help but think that this is probably his patch. This is where he's doing the farming. This is where the sacrifice came from. And what he does is he butchers his brother. You know what? If God wants a sacrifice and he's going to reject mine and choose my brother's, what if there's only one sacrifice offered to you, God? Are you going to reject it then if it's the only one offered to you? He sees Abel and takes his life. This is that same pattern that's set in motion in Genesis chapter 3, where Eve sees the fruit and takes it. This idea of sin crouching at the door like a predator. And now, all of a sudden, the predator isn't sin, it is Cain himself. He's not just affected by the powers against him, he has become the thing itself. And this is like Satan. Mm-hmm. The Bible says that Satan says you were a murderer from the beginning. And so right away, 1/4 of the world's population is a murderer. From the very beginning, humanity is not doing really well. And so what you got is a guy who refuses to repent. He knows exactly what God wants him to do and won't do it. And he's willing to hurt other people so long as he gets his way.
So where did the temptation come from?
I think it comes from two places. I think it genuinely comes from the heart of man. We want to define good and evil for ourselves. But I think it is also encouraged by the supernatural host that is against us. Satan also desires to corrupt the priesthood of the believers.
What about Cain? You think that, so Satan is obviously around in the garden. That's one of the main characters of the fall, is the serpent. But then, the serpent is cursed and is cast out of the garden. Do they just all get thrown out on the sidewalk, the same place? Like, here's Adam and Eve and the serpent. They're all right next to each other.
Yeah, it seems to be that, yeah.
And it's interesting because the Bible doesn't really talk a lot about who is tempting him in the same way that it does with Adam and Eve. And yet there is the temptation. And I know that the heart of man is twisted now that we have a sin nature, and Cain and Abel would be the firstborn into the sin nature. Mm-hmm. And so there's just organic, physical part of our body that says, make everything about you. And, do what's best for you and do what's best for you. But it seems to me that there's more than that. God says that sin is crouching at the door, and Satan is depicted as a crouching tiger and trying to really attack you at any chance. No,
that's the Kung Fu movie.
I know. But
I know what you meant.
He's also a hidden dragon if you're thinking of it that way. But but still, it seems to me that there is some form of meddling that's going on with Cain outside of just his own nature.
When I view temptation in my own life and in the lives of other people, I view it as existing in the same way that creation does. And creation has both a physical element and a supernatural element. And I think temptation does the same thing, that there are forces that will influence you into sin. How that works, I don't exactly know. Martin and I came up with some pretty good theories the other day. Some of them got pretty out there. Awesome, yeah.
I'm getting so much FOMO. You guys went fishing without me. You're having conversations about spiritual warfare without me. What in the world?
Yeah,
You're going to board meetings.
You keep not coming to the assigned. Listen, you're the worst captain we've ever had.
Listen, the board meeting is
Also
open
the
to
only
the
one.
public.
You're also the best captain we've ever had.
Thank you. Yeah, one and only. Come to my board meeting. It's open to the public.
I go to enough meetings.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Rose.
I'm just saying, John.
The sun goes down at 6:30, and Rose is like battening down the hatches and going to bed.
Absolutely. I am old.
It's just, I'm really intrigued by the temptation part of it. In today's world and our mindset of how creation works, there is a natural temptation. If you see a cookie, you're like, I would like to eat that cookie, especially if you have diabetes, I would assume.
I would like
John
to eat
could help with
all
that.
of the cookies.
But there is almost another form.
Can I trade my cookies for brownies?
Yeah, that'd be fine too.
Okay.
But I almost feel like there's a different form of temptation, which is like the hurting of somebody else or the diminishing of somebody else for the gain of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you're thinking of like a physical temptation, like something to eat or, a good looking female or something like that, there is this physical desire for something that you shouldn't do. But then there's also this idea of like, how do I become better than that person? And the only way
how do I
do
possess it
can
or
take
take
them
it
down.
I think you're exactly right, and you'll notice that it keeps increasing. Like the original temptation is Cain's heart's in the bad place. He needs to repent. And so now, instead of repenting, Cain says, well, what if I kill the guy who did better than me?
And when you talk about the I wills of Satan, that's what Satan says. That's
I
what
will
he
be
wants.
higher than the stars of
And
the sky. Yeah.
And so for me, that's almost where the supernatural temptation comes from.
Mm-hmm.
There's a natural temptation of like, man, that cookie looks good, but I know I shouldn't because I should keep my body
Yeah,
healthy.
I know, like the famous comedian like Flip Wilson, the devil made me do it kind of a mentality of like humanity is just completely neutral. I don't believe that. I think we are perfectly capable of pursuing wickedness all on our own. But I also think that there is a supernatural intelligent evil that delights in corrupting the creation of God.
And to me, I have very little basis to go off of, but I like to make big claims. It's almost as if when there is a spot in your life when gaining for yourself means taking down somebody else, I believe that is a temptation that comes from something outside of a human being.
It, at the very least, is a complete twisting of God's intent for what humanity is.
Right.
I think that the verse in the New Testament, I think it's in Romans, where it says to rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep.
Mm-hmm.
This is such an admonition to me because at the heart of it, that's what it is. If somebody is in a state of rejoicing, of good, I don't know, blessings or fortune or just, to rejoice with them when really you're envious because their sacrifice is being accepted or their offering is and yours isn't, to put it in Cain and Abel terms, and then to weep when someone is weeping and to go alongside them and do that too. And honestly, you kind of feel like, well, where's the people standing with me when I weep? Like you have to lay yourself aside and serve other people and to rejoice with them and weep with them. And that is what is not happening here. It's every man
And
for him own self.
God calls him out. He's going to say, Cain's response to him as, am I my brother's keeper? And the answer is, yeah, that is what you are. That's what humanity is. When God looked at Adam and saw he was alone, he gave him an Azer. The Azer's name becomes Eve. What about the children then? Are they also, Azer, is family supposed to be looking out for one another? Or is that mom's job? I'm supposed to just go off and do whatever I want. You see this breakdown of the God-given institution of family through the lens of violence and pride and arrogance and blasphemy. Like this is Cain spitting in the eyes of God and saying, am I my brother's keeper? And God knows. Like at least Adam and Eve had the decency to hide. Cain is walking openly in the idea that nothing can touch me. And so let's jump into his story a little bit more. This is verse 8. No, we already did that. Let's go to verse 10.
And the Lord said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth."
Can I stop before we go any further?
Yeah.
Where did Cain think Abel was after he died?
No idea. No idea at all. This is something I would like to know also.
Because we think when you die, you go to heaven where God is.
Mm-hmm.
So if Cain had any inclination that Abel was going to heaven after he died, since God seems to like him a little bit more, wouldn't God know exactly where he is? He's right next door to him. Like, you're the first one, buddy. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of response is this? Like, Cain knows that God knows where he is. In fact, he's probably with God.
There's
at this point.
it's none of your business. Like, there's a real sense in which Cain is viewing himself as a god, in the sense of the king. These things exist for me. Mm-hmm. Who are you to call me to account?
And you can hear the eye wheels of Satan bleeding through.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And remember, you remember when I said, like, it gets clearer, like, what Cain is? I think the reason that it doesn't really go into detail about the sacrifice is because it isn't about the ones and twos, the little data bits. It's about this big picture. And the big picture is, what is man if it doesn't look like the Lord?
This is so sad because just chapters before this, it says that, that man became a living soul when God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And here we have someone taking that life away for the first time. What a terrible moment.
Absolutely. That's why I said it's blasphemous. There's this ultimate rejection of the gift of God.
It's anti-life.
And so Cain becomes an unazer. As a matter of fact, the only other person in the Bible like this so far has been the snake, has been the Nakash, the serpent. That's who he's like. He has not just been influenced by it, he has become it. The danger that's out there is Cain. He's walking and feeding the ground. Remember the phrase that described what Cain did. He's an Obed Adamah, the servant of the ground. And now he's feeding the ground, and probably his own field, the blood of his brother. That's pretty creepy when you just stop and think about like the supernatural significance of that. And so the Lord says to him pretty clearly, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground." That's a weird phrase. It's only found really in one other place. It's in the book of Job, where Job is like, "Ground, don't cover up my blood when I die." Like, let it all like sing out like as a witness, a testimony. In the book of Revelation, it talks about the blood of the saints crying out as a testimony. And now it says, "You are cursed from the ground." Not necessarily that I am cursing you. You were already walking in a brokenness between me and you. You're walking in the curse. Adam and Eve have messed themselves up. They have willingly gone into this lifestyle. And he says to Cain, you have now just dug deeper and deeper and deeper. The depravity of what you have done, you are reaping what you are sowing. And there's a really weird element of this where the ground itself becomes an enemy of Cain. Because you fed me the blood of your brother, I refuse to feed you. I can't think of anyone else in the Bible where something like this happens. Like, this is almost like, it reads almost fairy tale, like not in like the negative way, but in like it's so on the nose. The creation itself rejects Cain and won't serve him. And so Cain, who is a farmer, right? This is how he is gathering foods. This is what he loves to do. He is a servant of the ground, is now cast out. Not only has he been cast out of Eden, now he is cast out from the ground itself. This is as deep a rejection that as Cain is possible of receiving.
Well, and add to the fairy tale element, the personification that's going on in this verse, how the blood is crying, the ground has a mouth, it gives out strength. It's so poetic.
When you get into then the Old Testament and it starts talking about the worship of demons, they are doing this. They are pouring the blood into the ground as a means of witchcraft. And it gets really weird with like the whole Baal of Peor. You see this in like the Iliad with Achilles, or I think it's actually in the Odyssey. We've mentioned this a couple times. I should actually look it up. But this element is a huge part of witchcraft. We were just at in Louisville where the witch tree is at. I took you guys over to see that, and there was a vial hanging from the tree that had blood and soil in it. There was a spell that had been cast and hung in the tree. This is the reason that framework comes about, whether it's caused by the supernatural demonic world to do something, or whether the demonic world picked up this idea from these things. It is a picture of the ultimate twisting of what God intended it to do. And so then when you look at what Cain is doing, you can tell this is the opposite of what God does. And it becomes beautifully clear when you look at Jesus. He doesn't pour out other people's blood. He pours out his own blood to save the guilty. This is the opposite of what's being talked about here. And so the story of Cain is not a throwaway story about how just, teenagers these days are getting uppity. We started out this way. Like, this is what we have been since the get-go. And there is this personification of the earth. And if you think about it, what exactly is Adam? He is walking, talking earth. Adam means man. Adamah is the word for earth. And the word for blood is dam. Adamah. Adam. It rhymes. This is like poetry. You are feeding the earth, your brother. The blood has been poured out. And this becomes a way of talking about ultimate betrayal, about what it looks like to be the opposite of the Lord God. So Cain has failed as a priest. He's now failed as a man, and he's nowhere close to imaging God. Man was to have dominion, and Cain is dominated. In verse 7 of chapter 4, it says, if you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, and you must rule over it. This isn't just saying, Cain, you're making bad decisions. This is saying, Cain, I made humanity to have dominion, and you have just become a slave to this other force.
How was Cain supposed to know what to do to rule over it?
That part, it doesn't say. Like, I would like to imagine, like, God came out of the garden with the 10 Commandments and was like, okay, here we go. Here's the 4 things I want you guys doing. It doesn't tell us. But whatever it is, Cain apparently was well aware. By not giving you the details of the story, it highlights the aspect of the story that the author intends you to do, and that is the twisted nature of Cain.
Just the application in my mind, or the part of my mind that tries to find application, struggles with that type of idea. And it's the same thing that you said earlier about the recipe, desiring the steps on how to get this done. It's like, okay, God, I understand what you're trying to tell me, that I can't fall victim to the sin that's crouching at the door. And you even say you must rule over it. But like, what do you mean? Like, what do I do to rule over it? And I know once Jesus comes and the Gospels are written, there's a lot more step-by-step instructional type of ideas that go around here. But it's the same idea that I mentioned earlier about being frightful, that it seems like I've done everything all my life to really do what God wants from me. And then all of a sudden he's like, I don't like your sacrifice. I like his better.
Oh, I see what you mean. So in this sense, Martin, it would mean a force is pushing against you. You don't fall down. You stay up. You do not do what it says to do. So if I tell you, let's make it, like Cain is thinking to himself, I should kill Abel. I should steal his life, and then I'll be the only one, and God will have to treat with me. To resist that is to say, no, I recognize Abel as my brother, and I want to love my brother. I want to literally keep my brother. That's how you do it. I mean, the bar is set pretty low in this story. The other things that Cain does, like he's given a one-on. Wouldn't it be nice if like God showed up occasionally to talk with you and was like, listen, this is the thing that's messing you up. We're going to work on this week. My son was at the freezing cold baseball game, and there he is. The coaches will come out like after he got on base twice, he struck out once, but each time like they look at him like, all right, Pat, this is what you did. This is what you got to do. And Patrick looks at him and kind of does what they say sometimes. But the idea is pretty clear. There's an ongoing relationship. Cain has decided, I am the God. I will serve myself. The earth, I'm not here to serve it. I will feed it what I want. And my brother, who cares? It's about me. And God confronts him and says, what have you done? It's interesting to me. It says, the ground will no longer give you strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer. These two words are really interesting to me because they are words that are connected to motion. The one word means like swaying motion, like reeds or branches of a tree. What you are is not a stable thing. You are swayed. This unseen force moves you, and you are constantly changing back and forth. And again, we should be reliable to one another. Our yes be yes, our no be no. A father should be protective of his children, a mother protective of her children. The relationship itself have things that are stable. It's not a positive thing when your wife has no idea how you're going to react to any given situation. This is a negative thing. We recognize that when Adam and Eve recognize that they're naked, they cover themselves, they hide. There's a breakdown of family. And so instead of being azer, family becomes dangerous. You're going to see this in Cain's description here. This expression, you're going to be a fugitive and a wanderer, as far as I could find, only appears in one other verse in the Bible, these two Hebrew words put together. And it's in the book of Isaiah. And I think it's a pretty cool spot where you see these two words. It doesn't say fugitive and wanderer in English because those words have a broader use that they can be. But read Isaiah 24, verse 20. This is where you see those two words together.
The earth staggers like a drunken man. It sways like a hut.
Staggers and sways. That's the same phrasing that's used to describe Cain. You are like a drunk, staggering. You sway like a hut in the wind. You ever been in like a shed when it was really windy and you're like, oh man, this thing is going to move? That's what's happening to Cain. He's being blown around, wandering. But then the text gets weird. Keep going.
Its transgression lies heavy upon it, and it falls and will not rise again. On that day the Lord will punish the hosts of heaven in heaven and the kings of the earth on the earth.
The only other place that I could find where these two words come together is also one of the only places in the Bible that talks about God's judgment of the heavenly host and the earthly host. It's the kings and the powers together. I think it's pretty fitting that seems to be what's happening in Cain's story. There is a physical part of the story, but there is also a supernatural element to the story. Cain is a fallen priest who is no longer imaging God. And Cain's response to what God says is really interesting to me. Let's jump to verse 13.
1 second.
Genesis chapter 4, verse 13.
Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me today away from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden.
Okay, we're going to pause right there. All of a sudden, Cain says, you know what really upsets me? This is too much. I'm driven away from the ground. Now, this doesn't mean like he's flying or anything like hovering. It means like my purpose, like what I am, is ground related. This is what we are. And now I'm out. I have no role in this. And then he says, you have driven me away from your face. Apparently, this is a face-to-face conversation. There is some sort of presence that's there. Now, whether this is God appearing in a physical form, whether he's talking to like, I don't know, the pillar of fire, I don't know, a burning bush, something's here, but he knows that this is the Lord. And Cain is saying, I'm a priest. I'm one of the Adam people. This is what I am. I'm made to be in your presence. Can you really take it away from me? Can this happen to me? He doesn't seem to have thought at all about any of this with Abel. That Abel was everything that Cain is also, but it didn't matter because I'm not my brother's keeper. This is narcissism to the ultimate degree. Keep reading.
And from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. Then the Lord said to him, Not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord put a mark on Cain, lest anyone who found him should attack him. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden.
So this is the beginning, or not really the beginning, the continuation of this drift east. When Adam and Eve are pushed out of the garden, it's to the east. Cain is driven further east. And so the concept here is, where is humanity going? Farther and farther away from the direction that the light is going. The sun moves to the west. Where does mankind go? The opposite way. We see what the light is doing, and we head the exact other direction. We haven't stopped doing this. This is a really beautiful... Now, I think actually Cain did go physically to the east, but you can also tell this is a beautiful way of describing this. And so Cain is wandering. He's in exile. He has been pushed away. And they were already in exile from Eden. So he's been exiled from the place that they're exiled from. This is getting worse and worse and worse. And humanity is just going to keep drifting further and further and further and further into a twisted version of what it was made to be.
You made a comment, almost like a throwaway comment, and I'm stuck on it. Not from a bad perspective, but I think it's amazing when you said that the punishment is greater than he could bear. And then you said something along the lines of, did he not think of the same thing with Abel? I mean, Cain doesn't receive from God anything that he didn't provide to Abel. He takes him away from his purpose, and he kills him. He takes him away from the face of God. That's exactly what God then gives to Cain, and Cain says, this punishment is more than anyone could bear.
Yeah, and I think it's great, too. He's like, and somebody might kill me. Like, can you imagine, God, that someone might kill me? Like, who would do that? Well, you would do that, man. You are reaping what you have sowed almost literally on the nose.
But just the weight of glory, the C.S. Lewis mentality of that, it's like this guy was the closest related.
He stole it from Paul, but
well, that's fine. But he's the closest related to that topic that you can get, other than his mom and dad, and yet he has no recollection that Abel is the same thing that he is. Like, he's on the same playing field as me, but he's a throwaway person.
Well, isn't this the root behind racism, or anything
Any
like
kind of ism?
This
Yeah.
human, it's other. It's not as important as me. Like, I don't care about them. I care about me. This is selfishness. All of the pride that really is the ultimate seed from which so much sin grows is present in the heart of Cain. And so you wonder, why does God not accept Cain's sacrifice? It's because this is what was in Cain. It's now manifesting itself. You're beginning to see it. And he's almost delusional. And he's certainly guilty. And so when he starts demanding things, Cain sees his punishment as existing in 4 pieces.
Could you imagine the court proceeding? All rise.
Just me.
Just kidding. Nobody else here.
Well, where are Adam and Eve?
Right.
Like, were they brought into this conversation? Apparently not. It says Cain sees his punishment, as 4 parts. The earth will no longer willingly feed him. He's driven away from God's face. He is going to be a nomad, and he's going to be hunted. His life is threatened. So he who murdered his family must now beware of his family. There is this ultimate, try to think of a different way of saying this, because I think it's really important, but Cain is oblivious, seemingly, to the fact that any of this would ever come back and touch him. And as a pastor, I get this call all the time. Like, families never call me to be like, man, I'm just in love with my wife today. Just wanted you to know. Instead, I get the call that's like, man, all these things that we've been doing wrong for 20 years have finally hit a breaking point, and everything is broke. It's those moments that people then suddenly reach out for help. Cain believes that he is in control, and when it is demonstrated to him that there is a power above him, he's shocked by it. What he ought to reap is death. Instead, God protects Cain. This is weird to me because we like to think of the Old Testament as filled with the vengeful, angry acts of an evil, mean, old, grouchy God. That's not the Old Testament that's in the Bible. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. When he sees Adam and Eve guilty as sin, he finds a way for their life to continue. When he finds Cain guilty as sin, he does the same thing. And believe it or not, he does the same thing for you and for me. That was the whole premise behind the cross, that he cries out for our forgiveness, not cries out for our innocence, but finds a way to reconcile the guilty to God, to the Father.
What's even one step further to that, it's, Cain pretty much deserves for God to smite him down with the electric lightning bolt. I mean,
as
honestly,
opposed to the
non-electric lightning bolt. But anyway, like he deserves the instant gratification of death is what he deserves. And God says, I'm not going to kill you. Like, that's not in my nature. And then, in fact, I'm going to prevent anybody else from doing it too. It's not just this idea like, okay, you have a curse and your life is going to be different now, but it's not like you're going to die right away. There's always this like secondary chance that God gives to his creation. Like Adam and Eve is like, really, it should just be over. Like, we'll try again with two others. But instead he says, no, I'm going to allow you to live several hundred years and be able to populate the earth.
There seem to be, by the way, just as a sidebar issue here, more people on the earth than just this. Yeah. Cain is worried someone is coming after him. Adam and Eve have many children. It's referenced later on, more than just Seth. It says that Seth is the one who's in the image of Cain, of Adam. But there's more going on here. There are a couple theories about this. Maybe we can do like some kind of episode on that in the future, but that's not the premise of what's happening. What I'm trying to do is to show you what the author of the text is trying to do. And the author of the text is trying to show you that you can either be like the God of the garden or you begin to look like the serpent of the garden. And the serpent is twisted, and so is Cain. He is driven further from the presence of God. He doesn't get what he needs from the earth anymore. Look at humanity. I mean, when I look at like my youngest son, no one taught him to be ungrateful. It comes standard. And as soon as you give him a thing, he instantly is off to the next thing. Like, no one had to teach him that. Humanity is, by its very nature, unthankful and unsatisfied. We have a very hard time finding joy. And the older we get and the more advanced our societies become, simple joys are very hard to hold on to because there is something instinctively empty about the heart of man. You look like you have a thought, Rose.
I have a lot of thoughts. One of the thoughts I have is the title of our episode is The Mark of Cain. And I wondered if we were going to talk about the mark.
Since I have 2 minutes left to do that, that would be nice.
This wasn't an admonition. I just didn't want to derail us if you were wanting to get to that.
Cain says, man, I can't do this. Someone's going to kill me. And God says, no, they won't. I will put a mark on you. So the New International Commentary on the Old Testament lists 3 different ways that this word is used and understood. One way, the word is ot. That's the word here for mark. And it doesn't say what the mark is. And the word is used in different ways. That commentary said that it can be a sign of God's power, like the plagues in Egypt in Exodus 7:3 are called ot. They're called a mark. It can be a representation of another thing, like when Ezekiel makes sun-dried bricks and builds like a little model of Jerusalem. That's called an ot. The idea is the same. That's Ezekiel 4, verse 3. In Genesis 9:12, when God puts the rainbow in the sky, this is the same word, that it's put up there as a mark. And so it's an act of God's grace. This isn't a curse, like God made him freaky looking so everyone would just run away terrified of him. This isn't God making him look on the outside like he is on the inside. Instead, in some way, God changed Cain or made something about him different to the eyes of other people. But the Bible never specifies what the mark was. I researched this a lot, and I found some absolutely wild theories about what people think the mark was. My favorite one that I think is absolutely horrible comes from one of the rabbis. It's a guy called Arika, Abba Arika, and he taught that God gave Cain a dog, and the dog was a mark. And
Like man's best friend?
Yeah. He must have been a cat person. He was like, you know what the mark of Cain is? Dogs. So people would see like Cain running around with Lassie out there, and they were like, absolutely not. This is a sign of leave him alone. Another guy called Rashi, an influential medieval Jewish commentator, thought that it was a letter of God's name in Hebrew written on the forehead of Cain. Another guy thought it was a horn that was growing, so Cain was like running around like a unicorn. My favorite one by far comes from just Mormon culture. This isn't actually taught in Mormon doctrine, but it is a popular belief apparently among different groups of Mormonism historically, and that is that he grew hair everywhere, and that's what Bigfoot is. It's Cain running around out there. And so to me, I think that is the most creative one, probably. Another one of the Midrashes said that God wrote Sabbath on his forehead. A lot of
making
things up.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you were going to make up one, what would you say?
I kind of like the horn idea of like, honestly, or the dog. I like the idea of Cain having a friend. And
why am I holding my dog right now?
That's the mark of Cain.
But hey, if anybody has any ideas,
Yeah.
send us a comment, send us a review. Tell us what the mark of Cain is.
It doesn't say. And honestly, you're never going to know because the Bible doesn't tell you. And what you do get, though, is the mark. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say what my thought was earlier, and I didn't want to not say it, and then you wrap up here. It does remind me a bit of Passover, where he takes the blood and marks the lintels of the doors. And then when they see the blood, they pass over, And so is there any kind of a connection there between the Passover blood and the mark of Cain, like being saved from death?
Yes, that actually is used. That's why the idea of Sabbath was written, the idea that this was a possibility, because the rabbis were definitely picking up on what is Cain doing? Well, he's not harvesting from the earth. How is Cain going to live? Like he's not able to. God is going to have to provide for Cain, or someone else is, and he is the kind of person who murders people. God is going to set Cain in a way that he has to choose to come back to him, or he has to run further away. And what Cain decides to do is run further away. God tells him he's going to wander, and so Cain's immediate reaction is stop wandering. He tells him that he's supposed to be a support for family. And so what he's going to do is the opposite of this. Cain's family is going to be fulfilled in a guy called Lamech, who is just a really nasty fellow. And we're going to get into the city that Cain is going to build in our next episode and carry on with the story of Cain. But what I'm hoping people are picking up is that I have no idea what the mark of Cain is.
Sure.
But I do see in Cain what I am not supposed to be. I see in Cain what Jesus warns me I can become. And I have to choose either to define right and wrong for myself or to serve Jesus, the God of gods, the Lord of lords, mighty and awesome.